Thank you very much for coming on this rather foul evening. I say it's foul, actually. I haven't been outside for several hours, but I'm sure it's cold. Hopefully it stopped raining. Yet again, we're very pleased and honoured to bring you the latest in our Comet Visions series. Comet Visions, as you know by now, is a partnership between European Voice and Euronews in association with Shell. It's our aim is to provide a lively debate platform to discuss the important issues of the day in relation to energy, climate change and transport policy. We're very honoured today that we have with us Vice President Siim Kallas, who is in charge of transport within the European Commission. In a moment, I'm going to hand the floor to Luis Scafoni, who's Vice President for Alternative Energies at Shell, to talk about Shell's interest, the importance of the sector, of the issues we're going to discuss this evening to Shell. First of all, just to set out the aim of this evening's event, the EU has set a number of ambitious targets for its transport policy. The 2020 targets, as you know, for the greenhouse gas reduction, but also the ambitious targets in the 2011 white paper that Mr. Kallas was responsible for. Some very ambitious goals going out to 2030 and to 2050. Of course, these are not legally binding yet, and we're looking forward. I think those of us in the policy area are looking forward to a very vigorous debate on what kind of targets we have for 2030 and 2050. The goals are certainly very ambitious. Mr. Kallas, the multimodal commissioner, if I can call him that, is fighting his battle on a number of different fronts to get a transport policy that can deliver on the goals and the targets that the EU that has endorsed at the highest political level. Before I move on to Mr. Kallas and our speakers, I'd like to ask Luis Scafoni from Shell to make some opening remarks. Luis.
Thank you, Simon. I would like to thank personally to all our speakers today for being here, so we can listen to them and learn from them about their perspectives. Perhaps you will allow me to say a few words to set the scene of the issue we are going to consider today in the debate, which is the clean transport challenge. Let me start by saying something about, in general terms, what is the energy challenge that we are facing. First of all, the world needs to halve the CO2 emissions by 2050 if we want to avoid the worst of climate change, the worst consequences of climate change. But the global demand can double. Global demand of energy can double from year 2000 to 2050, and that is mainly driven by more population as we move from 7 billion to 9 billion people, and through economic development. So non-OECD countries that are actually keeping the pace on their development, going through their most energy-intensive stage of their development as they industrialize and actually they increase consumption. So that basically means if unrestrained, this increase in energy consumption certainly will have an effect in CO2 emissions as well. And one of the main drivers of our economic development is transport. Transport means access to jobs, access to education, access to trade. And therefore, that increase in the transport sector will actually be one of the big drivers of that economic development and one of those big drivers of energy consumption. Transport is indeed one of the most important elements or sectors in energy consumption, and at the same time a very important source of CO2. Transport accounts for about 25% of energy-related CO2 emissions, and road transport alone is about 17% of all CO2 emissions coming from the use of fossil fuels. So a significant contributor to CO2, at the same time a significant contributor to development. And if there is not if transport sector is not addressed properly, emissions from transport can actually go up by 80% or double by 2050. Therefore, making the challenge of addressing this reduction in CO2 emissions even more difficult. If we leave that unabated, we can easily see that we can have about triple the number of cars that the world has today by 2050, and about twice the number of trucks or heavy-duty vehicles that we have today by the same time. Oil currently dominates the transport sector. Something like 96% of the energy demand for transport is satisfied by oil. And transport alone represents about 60% of all the oil demand in the world. So it's a very direct relationship between transport and oil. Nevertheless, to address this huge increase in demand, we will see that all the components of energy in transport, starting by fossil fuels, biofuels, hydrogen, electricity used in transport, all those are going to increase significantly. We are going to see a variety of combinations of fuels and drivetrains that will actually be each one selected on a convenience basis, on a market basis, on a region basis. And we are going to see one mode of mobility, one pathway, one drivetrain that becomes more effective and more convenient. For example, for short trips in the cities, we will see probably full electric cars, just pure electric cars. And for intercity, agriculture, we will actually still need to have high energy density liquids in order to actually be able to satisfy that type of service. So there will be a significant number of pathway drivetrains combination with fuel that will satisfy that new mobility demand. And all of those are going to be needed, and all of those are going to have a contribution towards this clean transport future. So we need to address all of them actually in both the efficiency of each one of those drivetrains and the way that carbon reduction can be achieved. The Commission white paper of 2011 laid clear the decarbonization challenge in the transport sector and outlined certain initiatives of how to address this challenge. But all these initiatives will translate in the need for an integrated, smarter mobility solutions that will have this embrace a range of vehicle infrastructure, fuel types, urban planning. Most importantly, we always advocate, we have to have a way to use our space, so public transport, cycling, walking actually are encouraged. The challenge for the government is to create the right policy environment to encourage the introduction of new drivetrains, new mobility options, alongside with efficiency. Europe has made a fantastic start. I will do it in 2 minutes. Fantastic start by actually issuing some years ago the Renewable Energy Directive that we will see actually getting the renewable fuels and renewable energy in transport up to 10% by 2020, and at the same time have the most ambitious sustainability standard for biofuels, for example, that we see are going to the main contributors to achieving those targets in 2020. And at the same time, enormous benefits has been achieved through energy efficiency in the OEM sector, in the car industry. So that is a phenomenal start, and I think Europe should be praised for that. But we believe that there needs to be much closer and strong coherence between those two industries in the sector, the car and the fuel industry, if Europe is going to have the right investment signals to meet aspirations. At Shell, we believe that a swift agreement on the overall greenhouse gas emissions for 2030 is key. The industry needs long-term signals in order to invest, in order to come with solutions. And we see that horizon of 2030 as a very important key in addressing the challenge in transport if Europe is going to get the investments that they want in this sector. Take an example, for example, advanced biofuels. We had to praise the Commission in the proposal that have issued a couple of weeks ago to strengthen the policy support for advanced biofuels. But it's not going to be enough. To attract investments in Europe, we will need more clarity about the long-term policies well beyond 2020. And therefore, that's why we said 2030 set as a new horizon. And it will require an address to basically the collaboration of industry, policymakers, even the citizens, and actually to come up with the right solutions. All my fellow panelists here have played an important role in formulating the policy direction to date. I'm looking forward for hearing from Vice President Kallas and MEP Khadraoui on the policy outlook, and at the same time, my colleagues from ASEA and Transport and Environment to see their perspective from the environment point of view and the OEMs. Thank you very much, and Mr. Kallas.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Kallas, your challenge is to bring together all the industry players and stakeholders. What's your vision? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear European Voice organizers of this event, I'm very happy that I'm invited here. For some reasons we had with European Voice when I was Commissioner for Administration and Discharge and fight against fraud more often contacts, but thank you very much for inviting now as well. Of course, transport is a very big issue, and I try to not to go into all sectors and all segments of transport policy. But it's clear that we have big challenges for the transport as a whole, and we must make our transport fit for the future. That's very clear, and we need to make a transport system efficient for challenges 21st century. So, first issue, oil and alternative fuels, mentioned already by previous speaker. What can we do and what are we doing in European Commission to promote the use to reduce oil dependence? This is a more right name for this exercise. We will propose, we just today discussed the fuel efficiency of vehicles, and we can achieve savings up to 12% on fuel consumption by allowing more aerodynamic cabins of heavy goods vehicles and retrofitting of trucks and trailers with aerodynamic devices. This was discussed with some NGOs and with a proposal, and we will propose reviewing the 20-year-old legislation on maximum weights and dimensions of road vehicles. So it will be, other elements of the proposal will facilitate intermodal transport. Adoption of CO2 targets for cars and vans. My colleague Commissioner Hedegaard will soon propose common methodologies for measuring CO2 emissions from trucks as part of the strategy for reducing heavy-duty vehicles. But of course, vehicle efficiency will not be enough to decarbonize transport. We need a comprehensive strategy for alternative fuels. We will propose by the end of this year a clean power for transport package. One of the reasons for our total dependence on oil as energy source in transport is a hesitation of transport users to buy alternative fuel vehicles because of the missing infrastructures. It's, of course, a very complicated issue. I have seen the experimental filling stations for various alternative fuels, and of course some of them are cheap, but some of them are very, very expensive and very complicated ones. So we'll try to promote the development of appropriate infrastructure. Of course, the main resources will be in the hands of member states and business, but still we can do something. So research and innovation, already mentioned the Horizon 2020 and other Horizon programs. We have agreed with our colleagues in research and development that there will be a substantial part of money also for the research and innovation projects in transport, and this will be focused also on the alternative fuels and different technological developments. Intelligent transport systems. We just had 2 very big events. One was in Vienna, big intelligent transport systems Congress devoted to intelligent transport systems, international one where Europe was very much, very prominently present. And it's a huge resource. We promote to planning and organizing of transport, to better cooperation between different modes, travel planning, journey planners. You know that we already had launched an initiative and are promoting projects of travel planning, and I see that there is a big potential to make transport functioning more smoother. And congestion is an issue. We have various interesting numbers. We consider that congestion costs citizens and businesses equivalent of 1% of EU GDP. This is more than total EU budget. And in the regions, most densely populated regions, this is role, or this takes from GDP 2 or even 3%. And you know everywhere that if you stay in congestion, in your car takes much more fuel than going more smoothly. So we need to develop infrastructure, and this is already mentioned here. It's one of the key issues. We are now in decisive stages of discussions concerning the future European multi-annual financial framework, where there is also a new instrument, Connecting Europe Facility, which promotes the infrastructure with a purpose to eliminate bottlenecks, to take down barriers. And it's very important concerning the intermodal aspects of transport that it connects also various points in transport. So we have so-called nodes concept, and this was not present before. It is a new element in this project where we always see that this trans-European network is connection between airports, ports, major economic regions, and member states, and we try to fight. It will be a huge fight still. Still we have, I would say, 1/2 of this fight to avoid that this trans-European network will not turn into a patchwork of all important roads for local elections. So it's a great challenge. It's the biggest challenge in Europe to avoid these kind of things. But we are really waiting what is going on with this Connecting Europe facility. It doesn't look so bad, to be frank. Of course, we discuss also what to do with road pricing, which was also mentioned, and we have discussed in European Parliament. This related to the so-called Eurovignette amendment to Eurovignette directive, and it's really we will propose we discuss some at this stage proposals to create some European framework. What do we need? What do we need at European level? Fair framework for road pricing and avoiding of any discrimination between the citizens of different member states. So this is a paramount importance. And also the fair structure of these prices, but in my view, it will always be in the hands of member states. What will be the rates? What will be the what will be the rates, and do they introduce this road pricing or not? But you know, from 27 European member states already today, 24 member states, if I am correct, uses different road charging. It is a vignette system. It's based on time. It is a vignette system based on distance, and it is a concrete tolling system based on distance or toll roads, where you know all very well. And everybody sees that there is in future there will be more and more difficult to finance the construction of new roads from taxpayers' money, and also what will be even more difficult, the maintenance of already existing road network. So we need to have a concept of road pricing, and to address it must be done very carefully. We all are drivers and don't like to pay for anything, so it is of course a big in general, we accept that this road pricing must exist, but when it comes to our own pocket, we are not so enthusiastic anymore. And today also we have the clear understanding that this is a subsidiarity issue, this is an issue for member states, this is an issue for local municipalities. But during these 2.5 years, the call to raise the profile of urban transport issues, state planning, we have launched an initiative with Commissioner Oettinger and Commissioner Kroes, so-called smart city concept, to develop certain pilot projects to have a complex approach to cities for better use of energy, which of course includes transport very much. But also we are looking ways and supporting the development of urban public transport. We are participating and financing certain projects of modern buses. Just not very long time ago, we had a big event in Brussels concerning this future buses concepts where we are supporting. So also this profile of urban transport, and where the most congestion, of course, exists, as you know. Most of the congestion. So it's also very, very important in European, more and more important in European transport policy. You know, I can talk another hour, but I will limit my remarks to these introductory remarks. Thank you for listening.